Hey everybody, this is my black ghost knifefish tank, and we rarely ever see the black ghost knifefish. It's almost time for lights out. In fact, I was coming down here to turn all the lights out, and most of the room has been darkened already. And I saw the black ghost knifefish had come out of its main cave, which is right there. You can see its face sticking out for a moment. And it was in this cave off to the left there. I don't want to move the camera too much just in case it makes an appearance. I want to make sure I get it on video. But that larger cave off to the left there is where it spends most of its time during the night. When I come down in the morning, it's quite often in that cave. During the day, however, for whatever reason, it spends its time in this very small cave. So I threw in one of these little treat tablets. It's a Sarah Onip treat. I've had them for a while. I haven't really used them very much. I've thrown a few in a couple of tanks, and this is always the reaction I get. It's always sort of lukewarm. The fish don't really seem to go after it like crazy, like everyone says they will. I was assured that the black ghost knifefish would come out for a nibble of this. Now, unfortunately, it has moved back to its daytime cave, and all it's got to do is what we just saw. I always think of it as the asteroid creature from Star Wars, the way it sort of sticks its face out like that and has a little gobble and then sticks its face back in. In a moment, it's probably going to grab the whole tablet, and once it pulls that back into its cave, that'll be the last we see of it. But what I was hoping would be that it would come out of the cave to the left there, and we'd get to see it swimming around the tank for a moment or two as it hunted down where the smell of this delicious food was coming from. But it didn't. It darted through the back of the cave, or the back of the tank like it normally does, and came in the back door to his cave. And as a result, we didn't even get a little glimpse of it on camera. By the time I realized he was making his move and hit record, he was already in this cave. So, I don't know. Maybe we'll get to see a little more of him. But honestly, I think just based on where the little tab is, even if he comes out for any more, what we've seen is what we're going to continue to see is just his little face popping out every now and again. I was afraid at first that he was really going to outgrow this 40-gallon tank, and it really hasn't. His growth has really dramatically slowed down. And the times that I do see him fully out of the cave and swimming, again, he doesn't really spend a lot of time swimming around the tank. He only swims from this cave to the other cave and sort of makes his way back and forth very quickly. Very reclusive fish, very shy. I know some people have these that are very outgoing, but this one is definitely not. And it's kind of topped off in size. Now, I know fish are indeterminate growth animals, so they will continue to grow throughout their life, and he will get bigger and bigger. But I read, these things get really big. Eventually, I think, pushing 20 inches or something like that, if I remember correctly. It's been a long time since I've actually looked up any kind of statistics on them. He's just sort of been doing his thing in this tank for several years now. But that's just it. He's been in here for about 4 years now, so his really early growth, the rapid growth that you get in animals like this is over. And now it's just going to be this sort of slowing growth as it continues. So I don't really see any reason why it couldn't spend at least most of the rest of its life in this 40-gallon tank. It's nowhere near getting too big to be in this tank. And of course, if it ever does get too big to be in this tank, I certainly will either rehome it here in one of my tanks, or I will take it back to one of the good fish stores. It's a little bit of a drive. It's not exactly my local fish store, but it is a fish store that I can take fish that I can't keep or don't want or whatever and sell them or exchange them for store credit. And then, so if there ever does become a need to really get this fish out of the tank, it will have a place to go. I'm not going to force it to stay in this tank if it becomes too small for it. But if it does, I think it's going to be down the road a ways. I really don't think it's going to be any time in the near future that I need to worry about getting rid of this fish. So I suppose I'll just say make sure you're subscribed. I don't think we're going to get to see much more of it. I don't really see much point in standing here holding the camera, again, that's pretty much all we're going to see. I really don't think he's going to come all the way out of the tank. So I suppose we can chat for a few more minutes and maybe see if he doesn't make some sort of appearance. It almost seems like he's knocking the little tablet away from himself, so that maybe he will actually have to come out a little bit to get it. I'm really, really happy with the gourami in this tank. I was worried about doing it, as a lot of you know if you follow along with my videos, that opaline gourami is a fairly recent addition to this tank, and I was a little concerned about there being some tiger barbs in there, and the tiger barbs can be very nippy fish, and I was afraid that I might lose some of the feeler fins, you know, the modified ventral fins here on the gourami that give it those long feeler-like fins. And so far so good. I haven't seen any aggression from the barbs towards the gourami, and if anything, I've seen a little bit of aggression from the gourami towards the barbs. So the gourami can definitely take care of itself as far as chasing those little barbs away. And the barbs, there they are, speaking of the devils, they're not very aggressive. They're not very nippy. I've never really had too much problem with these barbs. Those are oddly one fish that seem to have a worse reputation than they deserve. The gouramis always get talked about like they're friendly, happy community fish. In my experience, it says otherwise. Gouramis can be quite fussy depending on the species. These opalines are certainly not friendly, happy community fish. You have to house them in communities with care. These barbs have a terrible reputation for being, you know, fin nippers and aggressive, and you know, I will say I did try putting an angelfish in with the barbs, and that didn't work. You know, that's going a bit to the extreme. But as far as them harassing and bothering other fish, I've just never had an issue with it. So I like my tiger barbs. I think they're cool fish. I wouldn't hesitate to recommend them to anybody else. Again, I'd avoid, you know, angelfish and stuff like that with them, the really long-finned fish. Which brings me back to the gourami. That's why I was concerned with the gourami. Gouramis are considered slow-moving fish, and again, with those really long modified ventral fins like that, it's just a prime target for fin nipping fish to go after. So, you know, the Serpae tetra, for example, is probably not a good fish to keep with gouramis, and barbs would probably be right at the top of the list of fish you should be concerned about. But again, I'm happy to say no issues whatsoever on that front. So alright, I'm going to wrap that up and call that good. My silver Miley here definitely acts really strange when all the other lights in the room are off and his tank is the only one that's lit. A few of my viewers have pointed out that their fish do the same thing. I think from the inside out he can probably see his own reflection or something, and that's why he keeps flaring his fin like that and, you know, displaying and acting aggressively like that. I think he's actually just seeing his own reflection. So I'm going to call that good, so he's not any more distressed. Thanks again for watching. Make sure you're subscribed. Don't forget, this one is my Black Ghost Knifefish tank. Tonight we actually got to see a little glimpse of it. So thanks again for watching, and I'll see you real soon in the next one.